Hello from a very snowy and white Sweden. Snow kind of has the effect of, I think, making you quite calm. So, and the environment and the light, yeah, it's quite calming, especially if you're inside, but also if you have a lot of clothes and if you're outside. It's something with snow and, the silence that comes with the snow. That sort of, it makes you quite peaceful inside. And I do feel calm and peaceful now when I sit here and it's snowing outside. And especially when you just look outside and you sort of follow the snowflakes with your eyes, it's kind of hypnotizing. It's a good meditation to do. And again, if you walk outside, the silence, it makes you so peaceful. And that's a very good example of how the external environment creates or influence the internal environment. So the snow, and especially if it's not a snowstorm, that might be something else. But when it's just like this, it's white, it's snowy, and that environment of peace, it makes me feel peace inside. So the example of how something outside of me can make me feel the same way inside. And if it's raining outside, if I don't have proper clothes, then it might be that the rain, it creates, an annoying feeling or uncomfortable feeling. And if it's sun, then many people, at least people who likes the sun, they also get peaceful and they get happy and shining inside because of the sun outside. So that's very common how the external environment, if you're open to that and if you're a victim to being influenced by your external environment, then that sort of dictates how you feel inside, more or less. I suppose the goal would be to not be that influenced by your external environment. So even though it's storm here, it would be, or if I'm out in a storm, it's nice if I could keep the peace. That I suppose is some sort of goal to have. But it's very common that you are influenced by the external environment. And if you're aware of it, then you can change it if you need to. For example, if it's a very rainy and gray day, and if you're aware of, okay, so this makes me feel also rainy and gray inside, then I can choose if I want to let the environment influence me, and if I just want to go and lay under a blanket and just be gray and rainy, that's okay. But just so I know that that's because, the external environment, influenced me, I'm open for it. I say yes to that influence. Or I can choose to say, no, I'm not going to let that influence me. Either I want to change it, so I go and move to a warmer country and see, if I become happier because of it. I don't think that's easy. Or I choose to, even though it's raining and gray outside, I choose to still keep the sun inside. So that's like advanced masterclass. Let's see if we will come to that class eventually. But so just as the external environment influence and creates my internal environment, it goes the other way around. So if I wake up and I haven't slept well at all, and maybe something bad happened the other day at work or with my partner or family, and so my mood is kind of low. It's very helpful if you are aware of how your inner environment, your mood, most likely will influence how you view how you perceive and interpret your external environment. So even though the sun is shining, if it's not shining inside, then it's likely that you won't get as much out of the sun if it's not shining inside. It might help a little bit, but the gloominess inside, or your mood, will still be there if you haven't taken care of it. So it's I would say it's crucial and very helpful to be aware of this relationship between the external environment and your internal environment, to be aware of how much you let it influence each other, or how stable you are inside, that no matter what happens around you, you can still keep the peace inside. You can still keep your high vibe, your sun shining inside. Or if you are a person who gets very sensitive to your external environment, so you get very low if your friend is low, if the weather is gray, or if the news are bad, you immediately take that in and get low yourself. It's very helpful if you're aware of what kind of person you are, like how open or how resistant you are to the external environment. And you can see that in kids. You can see that in kids, the difference in different kinds of kids. So there are kids, generally kids are quite good in keeping a high vibe, in keeping, an optimistic view, and to let go of things easily, to not want to hold a grudge, not that much, not that long. And generally kids, they are from the start quite resistant to external threats, to their parents' gloominess, and to teachers who nag on them or whatever. They're very good in keeping the sun inside, but then eventually, depending on their personality, it's easy to let go, to let the external environment drag you down more and more and more, until you also have a low vibe, or you sort of get defensively positive, like you almost get defiant in keeping your positivity. So it's almost like a toxic positivity, because it's sort of, you're scared of, you don't want to get dragged down in negativity. But anyway, you can also see differences, the different kids. So some kids are by nature, very positive, and they want to solve conflicts by smiling, and maybe they have that as a mechanism. It's like if you're mad at the kid, they smile, which can be a good thing. It means that they are very good in keeping the high vibe, but it can also develop into a defensive mechanism, so they're too scared of seeing the negativity. But anyway, you can see that these kids, they protect themselves from external environment, from external negativity, by very good in keeping the optimism or the joy and the lightness, and letting go of things. And then there are kids who are more open to energies. So, sort of like if you let that kid hang out with a person with another dialect, they start to talk the same way as their friends all of a sudden. Or if they hang out with a friend who has a lot of problems or has no boundaries, say, from their parents, then that kid starts to behave in the same way immediately. So that type of kid has less boundaries, sort of. They are more open to different energies, more sensitive in that way. Why don't you start to think about how were you as a kid? Are you the person who are very open to influences, external influences, or are you more, stable inside yourself? You're more prone to keep your own mood. So it's good to be aware of what type you are, but it's also, again, good to be aware that when you yourself have a bad mood, to be aware of, is it that you then start to see your external environment with the glasses, with the perception from your own mood? So if you wake up and you have a lot of anxiety, can you be aware of if you start to see problems everywhere? Like if you wake up with anxiety and you talk with your partner, can you be aware of if you focus more on threats in the partner, on problems in the partner, or on things that needs to be fixed? If you focus more on a reality that is negative, you do that not because you have to, but because you feel anxious inside. Because you have that feeling inside, makes you act, and it makes you perceive your reality as a reflection from how you feel inside, and makes you act accordingly. You can stop it. You can, if you're aware of it, then you can, start to distinguish, oh, I'm anxious inside, then that's why I see this problem in my partner. And if you're aware of it, then you can stop yourself there and then take steps to take care of your anxiety, which I will talk about later. But if you don't stop it, then it might be that you reinforce, that you start to actually create an external environment with problems. So you can say that your internal environment of anxiety starts to bleed out to your external environment. So if you're anxious inside, you see problems in your partner, and you start to talk with the partner as if there is a problem, and then all of a sudden there is a problem. So then your internal environment all of a sudden is outside and also in your external environment. And then there is no difference. But the only reason that it has bled out is because you have let it bled out. Because you have let your internal environment become also your external environment. So your anxious environment inside is now also an anxious environment with threats outside of you. And that is a huge problem. That is really, it's very important to be aware of if you do this. Because then you end up being trapped in a reality that you think is true. You end up being trapped in that it's true that your life is full of problems, and that your life is full of threats, and that you should be suspicious of other people. You should all the time look for problems to solve, and you should never trust anyone. Because then when you're anxious inside, when you're scared inside, the body tells you that everything is dangerous. You shouldn't trust anyone. So all of a sudden, if you don't stop yourself, you have created this environment that you have inside. So now you're living the hell that you have inside. You're living it. And the thing is, it doesn't have to be like that. It's just a reflection of your own internal environment. It's a reflection of what is in you, and you unconsciously created that environment outside of you. It's a huge problem, but it's also very simple to stop it. It's hard work, but it's also very simple. Like if you manage to stop it, then you get the experience that, oh, I am anxious inside. It has nothing to do with my environment outside of me. And it might be even that the external environment can actually help me to feel different inside. Or that it might be that I can let the external environment be what it is, and then I can, try to take care of the anxiety inside. But I cannot take care of my anxiety inside if I let it bleed out. If I let it go loose on my external environment, all of a sudden has created this, everything is anxiety, then I cannot, take care of my anxiety inside, because then it's not an inner problem. It's not an inner conflict. It's all of a sudden is an external conflict. And then all of a sudden I have so much more problems, it's so stupid in a way, or it's so destructive. I make it so complicated for myself when I do that. And same goes for if you wake up and you're really depressed and you are pessimistic and you are bitter and you are hopeless and helpless and you see no hope and nowhere. And if you let that bleed out, literally there will be no opening for you. There will be no hope for you, because then you will project that, no one cares about you, and there is no hope nowhere, and everyone are idiots, and you're just grumpy. And then that will be not only your inner environment, but also that will be true for everyone else, because people will get grumpy with you if you perceive them as grumpy. Or if you're depressed and you blame other people all the time, then, it will be true that people are not nice toward you. Because most likely if you are hostile, or if you blame, if you're bitter, if you just complain on someone all the time because you're depressed inside, then that person, if it's not Buddha or something, or enlightened or whatever that is, that person will most likely either argue with you or be grumpy towards you or leave you, because they don't want someone who complains to them all the time. And then you will be right. The feeling inside will be right. Yeah, I told you so. No one cares about you. Well, it's because you acted that way. So also in that case, it's very important to notice that, okay, if you are dark and depressed inside, and if you want to have the chance to fix that, don't let it bleed out. Be very aware if you do, and be very, very aware that you will perceive other people as stupid, or as better than you, or as neglectful of you, just because you have that feeling inside, not because they are from the start, but because you have that feeling inside. You are depressed, or you have a low self-confidence, you have self-doubt. So if you want to fix that, keep it inside first, as a first step. Don't let it bleed out. That's the only chance of taking, of seeing it as a concrete problem, or as a problem that is not too big, that hasn't spread and generalized to all of your life, because then it's just too messy, because then it becomes true. Then you manifest it. You manifest your problem so that your whole environment is depressed, or your whole environment is dangerous and full of conflicts, just because you have anxiety inside. This goes for both if you have like chronic problems or a disorder of some sorts, if you have like a diagnosis so that you have lived with this problem for long. But it also goes for like if it's just a temporary thing. If you haven't eaten, then if you have low blood sugar, to be aware of, don't make a big thing out of it, or drag your external environment into your problem. That's your problem. Or if you haven't slept well, or if you have premenstrual syndrome, it's crucial that you're aware of, this is my life inside. This is my environment. This is how I feel. It's not how the world feels right now. It doesn't have to be spilled out. Draw a boundary, first of all. That helps you then to get to the next step, okay? So when it's clear to you that, okay, I'm annoyed with my partner right now, not because my partner is annoying right now, but because I feel annoyed. That's a huge difference. I feel annoyed because I have the feeling of annoyance in me, not because my partner is annoying. And that might be, provocative to think like that. But yeah, someone can be annoying. But if you think about it, if you have a day when you're happy and carefree and, everything is fine, compare that feeling with when you are very anxious or, agitated, annoyed. and then compare, like, how do you perceive your partner when you're light inside and when you're annoyed inside? Are your partner as annoying when you're light inside as when you are annoyed inside? Think about it. So I would guess that your partner is more annoying when you are annoyed inside than when you are light and carefree inside. So that's just an example of your inner environment creates your reality, creates how you perceive your external environment. So first of all, be aware of that. So that is basically about getting to know yourself really well, to really getting to know like how you feel inside, and to get to know the difference of when you feel happy, shappy and light, and when you feel low or anxious or annoyed, and to really be aware of that's your feeling. And when you are, then you can stop, then you create a boundary. Okay, so I notice now that I'm annoyed with my partner. It's because I'm annoyed. Okay, so I take that feeling back. I own that feeling. I don't try to fix it by creating a situation with my partner about why he or she is annoying. That's not owning your own feeling. That's not being responsible for your own feeling. I withdraw, so I am annoyed. That's my feeling, and probably, it's a good thing to stop talking to your partner. That's easier than if you take away the stimuli, take away what's triggering your feeling, so that you can work undisturbed with your feeling. So I'm anxious, I'm depressed, or I'm annoyed. I don't feel nothing, whatever it might be. Just withdraw yourself from the stimuli, from the triggers, first of all. That's easier than to, take care of your feelings. When you have done so, then you can ask yourself, okay, so I feel bad today in any ways. So either you accept that and you go to bed again and just, okay, it's better if I just don't meet anyone today because I can't handle it. It's better if I, just feel sorry about myself and just wait until it's over. That's one way to deal with it. And it's, sometimes that's the best thing to deal with it. Some sort of self-care engagement. Or another more active way is to treat it just as we talked about in the videos about change and the videos about self-sabotage, is that you actively identify your mood, and then you decide that, okay, I don't want to have this mood. I want to stop it. I want to stop feeling like this, and instead I want to force myself up to a more positive, light, higher vibe mode. That's more advanced. That's more difficult to really, practice that in the moment. It's much more easy to just go away, withdraw, and take care of yourself. Or actually, that's not easy for more anxiety-driven people. They want to solve their problems by fixing it outside of them, or creating a conflict, or wanting someone else to take away their feeling inside. So that's more difficult for the anxiety-driven people, but for the passive avoidant people, that's very comfortable to just withdraw. So maybe this one you can distinguish it like this. So people who are more anxiety-driven, then it might be good to practice to withdraw and have self-care when you are moody, and just lay low. But more passive avoidant people, that's more comfortable for them to do already. So maybe that's a good way to practice to change their vibe. To actually, okay, I'm depressed today. I feel very negative today. And then to ask yourself, do I want to continue feeling like that? Yes, I do, because it's more comfortable, and I want to complain. I want to be bitter. I want to be negative about the world. Okay, so then then you're not going to change. But if you really want to change, then you decide you want to, and you try to actively stop that mood and to be open for another mood to come in. Because that is what's going to happen. If you actively stop, and if you decide yourself, I don't want to be grumpy no more today. I don't want to complain no more. if you actively do that decision, and then you might watch my series about factors of change to see how you do that, then it will be possible for another mood to come in. Not maybe not, a positive, optimistic mood directly, but at least for something else to come in. More, I don't know, maybe humbleness or something else to come in. So there are two ways of treating when you're having a bad day, and maybe you have bad days all days because that's what your problem is. And if that's so, then it's, first of all, a great job. It takes a lot of time to be aware of how you have created your external reality as a reflection of your internal reality. So you have created a life where you have reasons to be annoyed, for example, not because you do, but because you have that feeling inside. And then you create a life that gives you reason to be annoyed. Or if you're very anxious, then you create a life where you are constantly have reasons to be scared. Like if being abandoned is your greatest fear, then you have a life where you constantly feel abandoned, where, for example, your partner is more avoidant or detached, then you are constantly triggered for the feeling of being abandoned. So your unconscious has creatively designed this life for you that makes it true that you have reasons to be scared, or you have reasons to be depressed because you are with someone who's making you depressed. No, it's first of all because you had that feeling inside. You have that feeling inside, and then you perceive your reality from that feeling, and that's how your life is created. And this might seem like really like, no, it's not that simple, and no, that's not how it works. I have anxiety, I have reasons for it, and I'm depressed, But that's really how it works. That's really how it works. Like if you manage to replace and to start to have a more light and positive, optimistic feeling inside, then you will perceive your reality as more light, optimistic, and more easy. And also, you will be met with more positivity. You will be met as you feel inside. It's just like that. It's very, very simple, but it's very complex to get out of your cycle. If you abandon yourself, you will be abandoned. If you hate yourself, you will be hated. If you love yourself, if you give yourself attention, you will get attention. You will be loved. Not from everyone, obviously, but if you love yourself and if you give yourself attention, then you can distinguish between, who wants you good and who wants you bad. So then you won't let the bad people into your life. And if you think you deserve bad people, then you will let them into your life. So, yeah, this theme is so fundamental. It's so crucial in order for you to start to treat yourself and other people with dignity and to start to create the life you want. Because again, if you think about it, it's not nice to drag other people, to drag your external environment into your own hell. That's not nice. So you want to, make a favor also for other people to learn the skill of being responsible for your own mood, to really draw a boundary there. This is how I feel. This is not how you feel. This is not how you are. This is, not my external environment. I own this, and it's about learning how to take care of your own feelings, which is probably not something you learned from early age. So please start to think about this. So start to think about how much and if and how much you bleed out your own feelings to the world, and start to think about if you want to stop doing that, and if you want to start owning your own feelings and create a boundary of first of all, to be able to take care of them so that you can process them, so you can give yourself love that you never got. And when you do that, it will be rewarded. You will get love from your external environment. The sun will shine on you if you shine inside. But of course, if you have a lot of sun inside, then in a way, or now, no, let's stop there. If you have a lot of sun inside, I want to say, then go ahead and, then it's good if you bleed it out. But then I wanted to take it back, because often people who have a lot of sun shining inside and have a positive vibe inside, if they are not aware of how much they give, they often end up being taken advantage of, and they often end up being depressed. And sometimes even those people are the ones who want to take their own lives, because they're too exploited, and they never get something back, and they're too sensitive to just give and give and give. So if you are so again, then we have to ask the question, what drives your sun? Is this fear to not be accepted, or is it actually peace and self-love inside? So if your sun is driven by peace and self-love inside, then it will be spread, and you will lose nothing. It's just it just shines, and you will receive and you will give. But if it's driven by fear of not being worthy, if you don't share your sun, then it will be empty after a while, and you will just give and not be able to receive. So that's a huge difference. Yeah, please consider this, because it's such an awakening when you start to be able to take care of your own emotions and not bleed it out, and to be able to decide if you want to change your emotion for the day, or if you just want to indulge in some self-pity. That's okay for a day or two, maybe. Yeah, that was my thoughts for now in this snowy winterland. Peace.